Welcome to Grieving Insomniacs. I am your host, Christy Haberman. I am glad you're here. Thanks for being a part of our community. A few disclaimers before we get started. I am a licensed therapist. However, this podcast is not to be considered mental health therapy or counseling. It is for entertainment purposes only and is not associated with my counseling practice, Christy Haberman Counseling Services. Thanks for showing up. I got sick right around that time, and I haven't really been recovering from that. So I apologize for the long absence. And because I've had my head buried in work, I did not realize that time had moved on. I go to work, put my head down, come up to breathe, come home, sleep, and then do it all over again, which is not a good way to live. It's really not. And I realized that doing my podcast is part of my self-care, especially for my grief, where my grief becomes particularly acute. So in a week, it will be Christopher's daughter's 12th birthday, which means he's been gone for 12 years because he died in June. And it just kind of snuck up on me. And I'm wondering what year 13 will be like, or year 14, or year 15. And what if I'm on this earth longer than Christopher has been gone? And that scares me. It seems like a distant memory right now until you get triggered and then it goes right back. So this anniversary date is really tough. The birthday is, because it just kind of hits you everything he's missing. And what would it have been like if he was here? I'm sure he would have been a devoted dad and would have been at all of her cheerleading activities. And don't get me wrong, his daughter has a very good life. Very good life. Much better life than I could have given her. It's just hard seeing that. And I know that means that the end, for me, the end is coming. So I measure my years from Christopher's death, which is June 19th to June 19th. So it's the last half. Well, I guess it's the first half of a traditional year is, for me, the last half of the year. So after June, I feel like I can breathe a little bit and know that I won't get hit with all these grief triggers. And I saw one this morning, but his friends have continued to be Facebook friends with me. And I saw that they went out, I don't know when it was, this weekend, past weekend. They have families. They have kids that Christopher never met. A couple of them have their own business, a business that's doing very well. One of his friends flies planes. So sometimes I imagine that when he's flying his plane, he's up there with Christopher. But it's very hard because you'll always wonder why. Why didn't Christopher get to live his life? Why didn't he get to have a family or someone that loved him? Like a girlfriend or a wife or kids or, daughter didn't know him. She was 3 months old when he died. So she spent time with him, but I'm not sure that she's going to remember him. I'm sure she's not. So it's just kind of sad because you're like, why not me? Why not our family? It's just heartbreaking. So then, you think about what to give his daughter for her birthday. I send things to her. She doesn't know who I am. She doesn't know I'm a grandmother. That's her mother's choice, so please no negative feedback about that. I don't have any control over that. That is her mother's choice. But I do wonder if she did know who I am. I would love to tell her stories about Christopher, share pictures of him, so she has an idea of what a good guy he was. He was humorous, had a great sense of humor. He loved people, he loved animals, all of those things. And I would like to know what she is like. So the other thing that I was curious about, and it would be nice if you listen to my podcast, if you'd leave me feedback on my Instagram if this has happened to you. But what is your current relationship with your friends? Do you have relationships with friends? That's what I would like to know. I don't have attachment to people anymore. And it is the weirdest thing. We were talking about it at work the other day. I was like, I'm just broken. I just feel like I'm broken. When I meet new people, they're nice people. Don't get me wrong, nice people. But I won't call you my friend. You're someone I meet. I talk to you. But I don't have an attachment to you. And I don't know if that's abnormal. I don't know if that's normal. Maybe it was abnormal that I attached to people before Christopher died. And I thought people were friends. Almost everyone I meet, I thought we were friends. And maybe that was the problem. Maybe it was wrong before Christopher died that I thought so many people were my friends. And I'm just normal now thinking no one's my friend. I'm just not sure, but it's such a drastic difference from who I used to be. And I realized it when we were talking. And I said, I guess I'm broken. I just don't know. I feel emotions for you. Like, I can listen to your stories. but you're never going to get to that place with me that I consider you my friend. And I just don't know why that is. I mean, I can hypothesize and say, oh, it's because I was abandoned by so many of my friends when Christopher died. But maybe that's a podcast for another time, is how death has redefined your relationships. I think I'm going to write that down. And we can talk about that. How has death redefined your relationships? I know they have significantly redefined mine. I don't talk to you for 6 months, I'm fine. I'll talk to you when I see you again. Do I have close relationships with relatives? Not so much. Well, not at all. To be absolutely honest with you, not at all. Because they abandoned me when I needed them the most. Which is fine. Choices were made. I say that all the time. And I think it's a mantra that helps me. So when I think about someone's behavior in relation to me, so like my cousins specifically, so they made a choice at that moment in time. And they said, for whatever reason, being friends with Christy or having a relationship with Christy, I can't handle her grief. I can't handle that she's sad. I can't handle her talking about it all the time. Whatever it was that they could not handle, choices were made. Now we're 12 years out. I've adjusted. I've adapted to the grief of them not wanting to be involved with me. And I'm now 12 years out. They're asking, why don't you want to be involved with us? Wait a second, it wasn't that I didn't want to be involved with you. You didn't want to be involved with me back here. So you don't get to see who I am now because you went there for the hard work. And that's just, maybe I'm being vindictive. Maybe I'm being, I was going to say a cuss word, a witch with a B, I call it. But what I know is that was so hurtful with friends and family back then that I can't allow myself to go there. And so when I think of these things, I say choices were made. And I'm making a choice. And I know I'm making a choice, but I can live with my choice. I know the consequences of my choice. My life is not going to change because you're in it, because you haven't changed. And so it's interesting, the cousins that I'm particularly talking about actually went to my stepmom, and they actually asked the question, because I drove by him on the road. It's 12 years later. I used to be able to see her house from where I live. Phone number hasn't changed. My address hasn't changed. She just drove past me, and because I didn't acknowledge her, she reached out to my stepmom instead of to me and said, why won't Christy acknowledge me? Where you been the last 12 years? I don't know. Is it about acknowledgement? I'm not sure. So anyway, I talk about this because I'm noticing in my relationships with people, I'm not attached to them at all. I'm attached to my son, my husband, my dad, and my sister. And that'd be it. That'd be it. Well, my son's wife and the grandkids. But that's it. No one else. Well, except for Marcy, my bestie. I'm connected to her. In fact, I think if she were to pass away, that I would be so devastated, because she's kind of my anchor. And if she left, where would I be? I don't know. I'd be alone. But I'm just wondering if there's other people out there that have noticed this change. And I see different people post about be what you most loved about your deceased loved one. I just wonder how they do that. How they do that. So what was most loved about Christopher? Christopher was a comedian. He was a comedian. He was caring to his friends. However, I had a conversation with Christopher before he died. And we were talking about a particular relationship I had. And I asked him about the people that he considered friends. And in this particular relationship, he said, that is not someone that I would consider a friend. So there was a lot of people that claimed friendships to Chris that I don't think were actually his friends in his mind. I mean, it's a conversation I would really like to talk to him about, because Christopher is kind of like me now. I think he had this wide range of friends. He was gregarious, outgoing, partied a lot, which contributed to him getting cancer, of course. But I don't know if he had close, intimate relationships. I know people thought they were close to him. And if you were to ask people that surround me, they would tell you they think they're close to me and that we're close friends. But that's not how I feel. And I suspect that's how Christopher felt. I know that Christopher was bonded to me and Roger. I don't know. He was bonded to my sister. But I don't know if he was bonded to other people, especially after he moved back to South Dakota. So he moved back to South Dakota and he went to see his biological father. Even though he looks like his dad, his father did not recognize him, and I know that devastated Christopher to a great deal. And then there was, the biological father's family. He was here about 3 or 4 months, and he did not connect with them like I thought he would. And I don't really know what happened there, because Christopher talked that over with my husband, not me. Roger said he was pretty devastated by it. So I really don't know who Christopher's close relationships were. And so maybe without realizing it, I've gotten closer to what Christopher was like. Maybe I've become more discerning in my relationships instead of just accepting everybody and calling everybody as friends. But it's just interesting to me how that can be. And so would you leave me a comment on Instagram or Facebook and let me know, what do you think? Do your relationships with your friends, have they changed since the death? Have you changed? Well, of course you've changed, but how you interact with people. I used to have a really dry sense of humor. I don't let it show very often anymore because I don't engage with people. Keep a lot of stuff hidden. I made a mistake at work the other day. Oh, God. Oh, without going into it too much, I will just tell you. They were talking about the work ethic of the younger generation. So we're talking 16, 17, 18 years old. How they really don't want to. And it's a lot due to people that make money off podcasts, social influencers, all of that. They're influenced by that and they think that's how they're going to make money. And they don't realize that those people that put that much effort into it are working 50, 60 hours. Like if I put in as much work as I needed to get my podcast to grow, I'd be working 65, 70 hours a week. That's what it needs. I don't have the time to commit to that, but I know it's just not that easy. So at work, I started to say something and then I go, oh, never mind. And then I started to say something and then I said, oh, never mind. And then finally I said it. I said, well, my son would have loved to work if he had been given a chance to work, but he died. Everybody in the room just goes quiet. Like, why should I not talk about that? That's my reality. My reality is Christopher was a hard worker. He was always a hard worker. He had multiple jobs. He worked hard to get into nursing school. He wanted to be a nurse. And I have no doubt that he would have been successful if he wouldn't have gotten cancer. But I mean, the whole room's just like, ah! And I'm in charge. I probably shouldn't have said it. But at the same time, it's my reality. My son died. I don't want to hear you complain about your children and how they're not meeting your expectations. I don't want to hear about how you don't want to take care of this child or that child. I don't want to hear that. Because I'd trade places with you in a moment. And Christopher would have traded places with you because he wanted to live. And so, yeah, it was kind of a mistake. Kind of not. I got to be careful. I've been running my mouth a lot lately, and that's never good for me. I need to keep my mouth shut. I don't work in an environment that is welcoming to that kind of stuff. I just need to not say things like that. And then I walked away thinking, where did that come from? But I was irritated, I think. I was irritated because they're complaining about their kids not wanting to work and da-da-da-da and da-da-da-da. And it's like, well, maybe it's something about you. Because then I started to think about it and I thought, I started college when my kids were, 7 and 4. I went back to school. And I went to school steadily until my 30s. So kids came home from school. I came home from work. And we studied. I always worked. My kids have always worked. They've always worked for what they wanted. Never once. Christopher asked for help when he went to school, and I was glad to give it. I helped him out in a couple other situations. Colin would never ask me for help now. Never. My kids have just always worked, and they're smart with money, and I'm just, I'm gifted that way, but at the same time, there's people that don't appreciate what they have when it comes to their children just frustrate me. So I would just caution you for the non-grievers that listen to my podcast. When you're talking in a group, be aware of what you're saying. Especially about your kids. There may be somebody in that group that would like nothing more than to have a child. A living, breathing child that would come home from work or come home from school, make the house a mess, so you could clean up after them and you could take care of them, you could hang out with them and talk to them, and they'd be alive. There might be people in that room that had miscarriages when you're complaining about how your kid is sick and you have to take off work again, and there may be someone that's missing a baby. And I wish there was more of awareness of this just in society in general. I think this podcast helps. Me talking about it helps. I just have to get in the right setting, and the setting I was in when I said what I said about Christopher would work if he were alive wasn't the right setting, except he would. And I know we have a rough year coming up. Cancer must run in my family quite strongly, because my sister, I think she's in remission from her marginal cell lymphoma that she had in her stomach. My stepmom has lost a lot of weight. She's going to the Mayo Clinic because, they're thinking that she might have something wrong. My dad's in his 80s. I don't know what 2024 is going to bring for us. Probably a lot more death. That's scary in and of itself. And there's no way to prepare. Like, how do you prepare for someone dying? I don't think you do. I mean, honestly, I'm scared because it was so scary when Christopher died. Just physically. But then if I continue to work and put my head down and don't think, literally, I'm so busy at work, I can't think. I'm doing 3 different jobs. None of them well, by the way. None of them well. I am just swimming like Nemo. Keep on swimming, keep on swimming. That's me. I'll try to stay updated on the podcast. Next week, it's Christopher's daughter's birthday. Maybe I'll do a podcast on all the things I want to say. I'll have to write that one out a little bit. About if she were to show up on my doorstep tomorrow, what would I say to her? How would I answer her questions about how come I don't know you? She will have those questions. One of my friends listens to the podcast Family Secrets. I tried listening to it a little bit, and my friend assures me that all secrets come out. I know, well, my family secrets did when I was in my 20s. It was not a pleasant experience. So I don't know how it'll be for them. I think that's all I got for today. Thanks for listening. I'll try to stay more on top of it. Try to take care of myself a little bit better so I'm not spending my weekends in bed. Take care. Thanks for listening. And if you get a chance, reach out. And I need some ideas for topics. So if you could leave me some suggestions on my Facebook, which is Grieving Insomniacs, or Instagram, which is Grieving Insomniacs, I sure would appreciate it. And let me know what kind of things you want to talk about. Because I would really like to know, are your experiences similar to mine? Are we far out? Are we different? And I'd really like to know what it's like for those of you that have family support. Does it make it easier? Or are you still in this all alone? I'd like to know that too. So thanks for listening. This is Christy signing off.